Hello, it's Leslie, and welcome to the interview with Leslie Heaney. I am very excited about sharing today's episode with all of you. I had the great honor and privilege to interview world-famous opera superstar Denyce Graves. Denyce is an American mezzo-soprano who has graced all of the major world opera house stages and concert halls during her 3 decades-long career. Her top label recordings are as numerous as her awards. Ms. Graves is also both an Emmy and Grammy Award winner. She has earned numerous honorary doctorates in addition to her portrait hanging in the permanent collection in the Smithsonian Institute's National Portrait Gallery. She also had the great distinction of serving as a cultural ambassador to the U.S. under the Bush administration. And as one of her favorite opera singers and a friend, Denyce had the great privilege of singing at Ruth Bader Ginsburg's lying in state ceremony at the Capitol. Denyce is now dedicating her time to the foundation she founded in 2021, the Denyce Graves Foundation, which focuses on both educating and mentoring the great opera singers of tomorrow while honoring the history of vocal artists that are less known but have had a major impact on the arts in America. This episode is part 1 of a 2-part conversation. In it, Denyce and I talk about her rise from humble beginnings to gracing the stages of the finest opera houses in the world, the incredible influences and mentors that she had along the way. We talk about what it's like singing with some of the world's greatest vocal talents, the 3 tenors specifically, and what drives her and inspires her and motivates her. I love speaking with her so much that our interview was a bit longer than usual, so I'm dividing it into 2 parts. I hope you enjoy hearing from this incredible American treasure as much as I did interviewing her. And with that, here's part 1 of Denyce Graves. Well, Denyce, it is such a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm delighted to be here and delighted to chat with you. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. So before we talk about all of the incredible work that the Denyce Graves Foundation is doing, I wanted to talk a little bit about your story, your background, and your incredible career as a classical vocal artist. Take it from the top. Where did you grow up? Where did your story begin?
So I grew up in Washington, D.C. In my family, I'm one of 3. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and grew up in a single-parent household. My mother was and is an amazing, dynamic woman. And there was always music in our house, always. But I also come from a very religious background. My father was a minister. My grandfather was a minister. And so the only music that was allowed to be played in the house was gospel music. But that was a nonstop thing. There was music, So I grew up with the Mighty Clouds of Joy and Shirley Caesar and James Cleveland and all those magnificent artists. But that was the soundtrack to my childhood.
Now did you sing also? And did you go to church on Sunday? And did you sing in the choir? Was that?
I went to church on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, this is how intense it was. We were in church every day. So yes, there was that. But I was also, there are many stories to tell about how I sort of found myself on this path. But one of the things that was a rule in our home is that you not only had to go to church, but you had to participate and be active in the church in some capacity. And so I was in charge of the bus ministry. And what that was on Saturdays, I would go around the neighborhood and speak with the parents and ask if they wanted their children to go to Sunday school and sign them up to go to Sunday school. And then once that happened...
Now, were you on a bus when you say bus ministry?
Okay, so exactly. So then we would go around to the neighborhood and pick up the different kids to take them to Sunday school. And my job was to sing songs on the bus to keep the kids entertained as we transported them from home to church.
So how old were you when you were...
When I was doing that, I was 9, 10.
Wow, that's it's too bad we can't bring the bus ministry back, because I'd love to, as part of the, we go to church a lot and try to go most every Sunday, but sometimes we're feeling a little lazy, but we know, and it'd be great to have some incredible young woman like you, a young person coming by singing on the bus and picking them up.
Yeah, we had to come up with all these fun songs. We used to do a lot of the call and response. I remember one song, oh, you can't get to heaven, oh, you can't get to heaven, on roller skates, because you roll right by, those pearly gates, oh, you can't get to heaven in roller skates, So things like that. That was my job, to make sure that I had all the kids that I was supposed to have, and make sure that everybody got to church safely and back home safely, and entertain them on the bus.
Was it during that time that someone recognized you having this talent?
Well, first of all, again, it was a requirement in our home that we not only went to church, but we were involved in the church in some capacity. And I think from the choices that were offered, that was the one for me that was most attractive. But to answer the question fully, my family also had a singing group. My brother, my sister, and myself. And we were called the Inspirational Children of God. And my mother, so I mentioned that I came from a single parent home. And so my mother, because my mother worked 3 jobs while she was taking care of us kids, she would assign each night of the week a theme. And this was designed, to really take charge of the time that we had from getting out of school until she came home, right? So that we wouldn't have all this idle time and we wouldn't be out running around, God knows where.
That is incredible. And you followed her.
Absolutely, because we had to present it when she came home. So Monday night was sewing night. So she taught us all how to sew. And my sister and I would make clothes for our dolls and stuff. And we'd have to repair like our jeans. Of course, nobody would do that now, but repair holes in our jeans or in our socks and that sort of thing. And she'd lay them out for her. This is what your project is. And we'd have to show her when she came home. And so Tuesday night was book report night. And she'd say, you have to do a report on, hydrangea or something like that. Thursday night was music night. And so we would make up these little songs and we would sing them for her on Saturday. And my mother said, but it's a shame that nobody gets to hear you all sing these little songs. Because we had fun doing it. And we had a little Casio electronic keyboard, and my brother would play something, and we'd make up these little songs and we'd sing them for my mom on Saturday. And she said, it's a shame that nobody hears that. Maybe we should sing that in church, on Sunday. And it turned into a thing.
By the way, your mother is incredible.
Isn't she something? And I'm so fortunate I still have her, and she's in fine form, and she's as beautiful as ever.
And did your brother and sister also pursue a career in music?
My brother and sister have beautiful voices. Beautiful. My brother has an exceptionally beautiful voice. Had he the interest, he could have made a very important career. My brother has a gorgeous voice. And my sister, too. In fact, when my husband and I got married, we had a karaoke night. And so my sister sang, and all my friends were like, oh, my God, like the wrong kid got called, to the profession.
I can't imagine what karaoke night. By the way, I have a karaoke problem, so we should talk about this offline. I have a karaoke machine at home. But the idea of how intimidating to do karaoke with you, and I would assume a lot of your friends at the wedding were also either opera singers or so that must be.
Yeah, but when it comes to karaoke, we wanted to have, and that's always a problem. Even if we go out to a restaurant and it's somebody's birthday we sing happy, like nobody wants to sing because we go, come on, you guys, it's just the happy birthday song. We can all sing that, But a lot of people were like, no, we're not going to sing because you guys are here in the space. But we sang material that we would never sing, Anyway,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll get you out of your comfort zone.
Right,
We can pick some wild card pop songs for you. So your mother obviously recognized this talent. In the 3 of you, you started performing in church. And then you were also at school. You had this very close relationship with your music teacher.
She called me yesterday. She's still with us. She's in fine form. She, too, is beautiful, effervescent, always joyful. She called yesterday, Denyce, Miss Denyce, I miss you. So I was this really shy kid, really, really awkward kid, and I didn't want to go to school, and I didn't want to be separated from my mom, and I was hiding behind her skirt, and I just cried and cried and cried the first day of kindergarten until they started playing music. And this woman who became my music teacher, Judith Grove, she was then Judith Grove, later became Judith Grove Allen. I thought she was magical. She sat at the piano and she played and she sang, and I thought she had one of the most gorgeous voices. And at that point, I loved going to school. And so that was kindergarten through 6th grade, and she was my music teacher. And that's when music was in the schools, right? And so we would go twice a week or how often we went. And I loved going, and I loved learning all the different songs. And we put on concerts and that sort of thing. And she knew that I enjoyed singing. And sometimes she would assign me a few measures to sing in, whatever it was we were preparing. When it was time to graduate to go to middle school, I went to an experimental middle school, a school without walls called the Friendship School in Southwest Washington, D.C. And I'm walking down the hall and I ran into her. And I said, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" She said, "I transferred and I became the music teacher here." And I said, "Oh my goodness." And so she said, "Do you know about All City Chorus?" And so All City Chorus is exactly what it sounds like. They get kids from all over the city to form one large chorus, and we would do concerts at Constitution Hall and places around the Washington metropolitan area. And so she got me involved in All City Chorus, and she'd come and pick me up Saturday nights, Saturday day, take me to rehearsal, stay with me all day, and bring me back home.
Think about the dedication of this woman as your teacher, doing that on weekends and investing in you. So then you start getting involved in that chorus. And is that when you knew that you...
So I started getting involved in that chorus, and I loved going, and I was learning Scott Joplin and all these things that I'd never... Because in my house, it was only gospel music. And we'd do these concerts, and I remember my mother would make my dresses. I've got some pictures that my mother took a dress of hers from when she was a bridesmaid and made a dress from that for me, and I loved that dress, this yellow dress. Anyway, so then it was time for high school, okay? And I was doing All City Chorus from 7th through 9th grade, and then she said, where are you going to go for high school, this music teacher, Judith Grove? And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "There's a performing arts high school. You've got a pretty voice, Denyce, and I think you should audition for the performing arts school, the Duke Ellington School of the Performing Arts." And so she got me the application. We filled it out together. I went and did the audition. I got accepted, and she became the principal of the school.
Stop it. I didn't realize that.
Now, talk about a story. I mean, that is from kindergarten through the time that I finished high school. She was literally, this woman was and is my guardian angel.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, she set me on this path, in fact, now that I hear myself say this, I'm going to give her a call and speak more deeply after this interview today, because she was an incredible gift to my life. And she's now like a family member or something like that. Everybody knows her and everybody loves her, and she's included in anything that, the family does.
That's amazing. I mean, to have that kind of mentor and booster, just sort of the importance of teachers in our lives when you have a teacher like that who's truly extraordinary. Her investing in you on weekends and...
Every Saturday, all day.
But there's obviously a higher, as you said, there was sort of...
A higher calling.
Yeah, power there too, right?
Yeah.
Sort of guardian angel.
No question about it.
And so she watched you obviously just soar and blossom at the Duke Ellington
She comes
School.
to all the performances. She still cries, my little Denyce, and it's really, really beautiful. And now, I know we're going to talk about the work that my foundation is doing, some of the community concerts that we're doing. She now lives in an assisted living facility. And 3 times already we've gone there to do community concerts.
That's so
and some
terrific.
of my kids, right? So that's a real full circle. Why I call them my kids, they're young people, but young adults. But we've gone to her retirement community and done concerts there. And throughout the whole of my career, of 45 years on the stage, she's, as often as she could, she was there, for my Met debut and all sorts of important debuts and recitals. And, she would come to all of them.
Hearing about her, because I had seen the 60 Minutes piece.
Oh, so you saw her?
I did. And I thought, then learning about what you're doing with Shared Voices and through the foundation, I thought it's sort of, I'm seeing this rhyme, your interest in giving back and mentoring young people and singers,
So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for connecting those dots and putting that together. And I suppose I've never sat down to really think of it in that way, but no question that all of that kind of philanthropy was poured into me, right, as a child. So I witnessed that, and I saw, those people who would do anything and work their hearts out and were so invested in your success, right? That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's those kind of extraordinary people, right? And now you're doing that for countless others,
Yeah, I've had that example, haven't I?
100%. So you go on to the New England Conservatory, and then what is your
Well,
first?
not exactly. So I graduated from the Duke Ellington School. I graduated early. I went to Germany. I lived with a German family there. And from there, I went to Oberlin College. Oberlin College at the time had a mandatory age retirement. And so my voice teacher, Helen Hodem, had been a big draw for the conservatory, but they had been enforcing this law for other professors and not for her. But she was sort of a mysterious age. We never really knew. She was in fine form and she looked after herself. But other professors were saying, listen, you cannot enforce this. If you're going to enforce this, it has to be for all. So she had to leave. She was forced to retire in my junior year. So my degree is not from Oberlin. It's actually from New England Conservatory.
Wow, 'cause
so
you followed her?
I followed her there. So there were 14 of us who left Oberlin to go to New England Conservatory to continue studying with her.
Oh, that's amazing. And what was it about her? Just incredible.
I mean, a great pedagogue, a fantastic technician, really serious. Her life was about shepherding and guiding the next generation of artists. We were her family. She never married or had her children of her own. We were her children. And she was 100% dedicated to this. And they used to laugh at us at the conservatory. We used to call it the con, when people would see us going to our voice lessons dressed up, because she would make you dress up for your voice lessons. So you girls had to have on a dress and heels and had your hair done.
Did you get the yellow bridesmaid's dress out? I mean,
and she'd make us dress up and she'd say, this is what you're doing. Yeah. This is what you're here for. So you have to put some care behind you. And we walk through the con and people say, oh, you must have a lesson today. And so whenever the Met would do something on television, great performances or something, she'd have us all at her house and she'd cook dinner and we would sit and talk and turn that into a master class. And not many of us went away for the school breaks because that was time that she was giving extra lessons and coachings and that sort of thing. So she was someone from sort of the old school, one of these sort of impresarias who dedicated her whole life to the development of young people. And so, when I went to the conservatory as a prospective student, I was asking the kids, who's the hot voice teacher? Who's the teacher that everybody wants to work with? And everybody said, Helen Hodem. And so I wrote to her and I said, I would love to be in your studio. And she had certain guidelines that, you had to earn a spot there.
Earn a spot there by?
The level of your dedication.
You knew you had the dress code. You had
definitely had but there was a rigor to, her work ethic that, if she assigned it to you, you had to come back with that material, learn, translate it, do the phonetic alphabet, do the history behind it, go to the resource material to find out what it was about, have all of that stuff integrated. And another thing that she did, which I see now being played out in my life, and certainly in the work that I'm doing with young people, is that she would never allow us to practice on our own, right? She would assign an upperclassman for you to practice with because you can practice in unhealthy habits just like you can practice in it. And so when you were a freshman, she wouldn't let you work on your own. You'd have to organize your practice sessions with an upperclassman to make sure that you were understanding,
Because they would stop you and give you feedback.
Yeah. And say, no, keep your rib cage out, and no, lean on your support or lift your palate or those sort of things to reinforce her teaching, right? And so she took the thing seriously, right? And if you were in her studio, you had to model that. And so that kind of incredible work ethic, there's no doubt that if I've had success in this profession, it's because of these incredible, strong women that showed me what the cost would be, what it would take.
Well, it's also interesting to me, sort of the discipline that goes into this craft. And, hearing about your mom and your story there, sort of the discipline of, if I told my children, and I'm going to use this, Monday night we're doing, it's book report night, that you were very receptive to that kind of feedback and having that kind of structure and really excelling within it, no matter what it was, right?
100%. And she checked that when she came. It wasn't just something that was assigned, and she checked you when she came through. So,
but then when you later, as you meet these mentors and these teachers who are expecting that from you, you had been
that's
already
right.
trained by
That's
the
right.
best,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Or the original.
Yeah. She's the OG. That's
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. So all of the students that are in your program, your dream, right, is the Met is your, you were talking about being in our house and watching the Met and cooking and having dinner. Everyone in that program wanted to pursue a career as an opera singer. Was that most everybody there, or there was different people within it? And then
at our foundation,
yes,
or
no,
at
the conservatory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. People were, I mean, this was the dream, right? That was what we were there doing. We were all there chasing that. That was what we wanted to do. And I would also say that the sort of fever that you saw being illustrated with other singers was contagious.
Yeah.
That's why it's really, I think, important to surround yourself with people who are about something, who have dreams, who are passionate about, changing the world in their way. People who want to do something with their lives, right? I mean, it's all good, right? It's all good because I believe that each life is glorious, and even though it may not look like that, right? So I believe it's all purposeful. However, I think it's really important. You can certainly hang around with the wrong crowd too.
Right.
Right. So I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who are as passionate about whatever it is that makes them come alive as is possible, right? Because there's a lot of stimuli out there. There's a lot of distractions that people can be pulled in all kinds of different directions. And I think that one of the things that I discovered at Oberlin is that I really caught a fever from watching the other people really the other students really throw themselves into the pursuit of this, right? And so that's why I think it's also important, because I think you can feed off of that, and there's an exchange with those people and an excitement that I think is really vitally important, actually. The importance of young people and any person finding something that they feel passionate about, that they're good at, and that makes them feel useful and gives their life direction and purpose, right? And so I think that sometimes that's what people are trying to find. They're trying to find that in a synthetic. They're trying to find that kind of, elation. And I know that, when I started studying voice, when I would leave from a great voice lesson or great coaching, there is nothing that could ever surpass that feeling that I would feel in having or discovering new music. I remember hearing Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings and what that did to me, how that turned me inside out, just hearing that and going, oh my, this is the most, or hearing Leontine Price sing for the first time and just being stunned and stopped in my tracks. And how, for me, there is nothing was greater than that. And I think that sometimes what I wanted to say about growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I think that was one of the great gifts to my life, was discovering the love of music and the impact of music that it can have on one's life, one's whole being and development, because it really did give my life purpose. And for me, there was nothing that could ever pull me away from that, because there was nothing for me greater than that. Right. And I was saying all this to say, about a lot of kids in college or a lot of young people coming up. I think that what they're chasing is trying to find that kind of high.
Yeah.
Right. And they're trying to find that in a synthetic. And for me, it was music. There was no question about it. I remember going into the bathroom in high school, and there was a girlfriend of mine, Deanna Williams. Oh, gosh, it just came to me. And she was smoking a cigarette, and she was making those cigarette rings. And I said, oh my God, you have got to show me how to do that. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So she said, okay, Denyce. And she tells me, hold the cigarette. And she says, okay, now you're going to inhale. And she says, now whatever you do, don't swallow. Of course, that was the moment that I swallowed.
Yeah.
It burned my throat. I thought I would not be able to sing again. And that was my one walk on the wild side. I took one puff, and that was it, because I thought that it was going to damage my throat and damage my cords and damage my ability to be able to sing. And so I was incredibly fortunate to have found that connection to music early on, because it changed my life, right?
And anything that would jeopardize that dream, because you had already, I think at that point, identified that this was your passion.
That was it.
So you graduate from the conservatory. It's a life pursuit and practice.
That's right, it is.
Right?
That's right.
But you then start going on auditions? Is that how it works?
So everybody's path is different and unique. There are no two career paths that are the same. What's often done in America when you finish with your formal training, like you'll go to, particularly for the voice, particularly for the pursuit of opera, because it takes some time for the voice to ripen and to mature, and you're not going to really do that at 22 or 23, right? And so it requires a lot of work. It is a lot of work all the time, and it never stops. You're always competing against yourself. You're always trying to get better. There's always more that you need to understand with the technique. There's always, I mean, if you think about that, we don't have the same bodies that we had when we were 5 years old, as we were 15-year-old, when we were 23-year-old. The body's constantly changing. The voice is constantly changing. And so that's one of the reasons that they say a lot of singers, particularly classical singers, because we are listened and tuned very, very differently, because it's about the celebration of the purity of the natural voice, right? We're not performing with microphones or enhancers or those vocal exciters or anything like that. It's a pure art form, right? Either you can do it or you can't, period. That's all it is to it. You can't fast track it. It's not who you know. Either you can do it or you cannot do it. And either you've got the goods for it or you don't. And it's simple, right? That part of it is simple, but the work is ongoing. So what happens a lot in America is that people will finish their undergraduate, maybe go into graduate school, maybe go on to a doctor or something like that, get into a young artist training program, which is what I did. That was the path that I took. I did that with Houston Grand Opera. I was part of their young artist program, which means that I signed a contract with the opera company to do small parts, secondary parts. You would study and cover maybe a major part, but not like the main protagonist or something like that. But like a secondary role, you could do a small role, but you had the opportunity to work with directors, with conductors, to meet the singers who were out there doing it, and to have an association with this opera company that you were growing up and learning, and people, while the voice continues to grow, continues to mature, while you continue to work on the technique, and while you work on becoming a performer and an artist, because there are different categories. To sing is one thing. To have a good voice is another thing. It doesn't have anything to do with singing. Some people have wonderful voices and don't know how to sing. Some people don't know how to be storytellers. Some people aren't performers, right? Some people are better at opera. Some people are better at recitals. Some people are better at oratorio. Some people are better at recording. It breaks down into so many subcategories, right? Or to so many different categories. But to find someone that I know now, certainly as a voice builder myself, that has it all together is rare. I see walk through the door, everybody's got a piece of it.
But it's hard to find the one that's got all.
Where
it's the unicorn.
All integrated.
It's the unicorn. I'm sitting across from the unicorn right now. But it's so true. I mean, I think for audiences, it's the performance that goes along with that spectacular
100%.
voice, right?
100%.
Where you can feel what the protagonist is feeling.
In which they're able to deliver, the authenticity in which you're able to really believe that they are, though, because you're an actor, right?
Yeah.
That you're able to believe that character, right? Because this is a crowded, narrow, competitive field.
Yeah.
Particularly for, sopranos, which are, all over the place. My heart doesn't bleed for the Sopranos. Sorry, Sopranos, but it doesn't. But there's certainly a disproportionate amount of Sopranos, right? And so if a producer has a choice between, 20 different, or let's even 10 or 6 different sopranos of equal talent. It's going to come down to the one who works the hardest, the one who is convincing, the one who looks the part, the one who can make you believe without a doubt, many, many, many different factors, right? All of it's all important.
So what was it like for you when, and I mentioned that I saw a bunch of different clips of interviews that you've done, but the one in 60 Minutes you were about to, that was your debut of Carmen at the Met. Did you feel like that was this huge moment in your life, particularly with the experiences you had watching the Metropolitan Opera with your teachers and just knowing the import of being on that stage? What was that like?
So thank you for that question. So I had two things that were really present in me that night. First of all, my prayer was to be present. That was my prayer. I said, Denyce, just be right here. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't start thinking about Act 3 and Act 1, right? Like if you're in Act 1, be in Act 1. If you're singing the habanera, sing the habanera. Don't think about the seguidilla. What I wanted to do was to be 100% present at that time. The other thing that actually I said three. There are three. My mom organized a bus trip of people from Washington, D.C. to come see her girl.
Oh, right. I saw that. And yes.
Yeah,
that was...
her girl sing at the Metropolitan. Now, they didn't know what that meant. They did not know what that meant. But they knew the cost. They knew the journey that it took to get there. Yeah. Right? And that's what they were there for. They'd heard me talk about this from 13, which was so weird. Like, where did you get that one from? The idea of you wanting to be an opera singer, like this little girl, right? Where'd you get that from? Yeah. And to watch those years of training, of lessons, of going to performances, of wishing, of auditioning, of failing, of winning, of failing, and all of the different things that, it takes to get there. That's necessary. That's absolutely necessary. Those are building blocks. That has to happen, right? So I was so happy for my mom that she was happy for me and really proud of her daughter to organize this bus trip. The other thing that I did that I was really proud of is that my voice teacher, Helen Hodem, I brought her there. Miss Hodem, for me growing up, where I grew, I did not come from a wealthy family at all. And opera is a very expensive pursuit. It's an expensive profession. It's super costly. And everything that you've got to do, your lessons and your coachings and the gowns and your, headshots and the getting to the auditions and making the tapes and all the things you have to do is very, very expensive. And so, I was working all kinds of jobs to be able to pay for my college. And my voice teacher helped me a lot. Miss Hodem, reached into her own pocket, wrote many checks for me to be there at school. I'm going to cry. And so for me, singing making my debut at the Metropolitan Opera, one of the things that I was enormously proud of was that I brought my voice teacher. I paid for her to come. I sent a limousine to her house to pick her up, to bring her to the airport. I had a limousine pick her up to bring her to watch her girl make her debut at the Metropolitan Opera.
You're going to make me cry.
Yeah, that was something I was really proud of.
Oh, you should be.
That was really great. Because she took care of me, This woman she believed in me, right? And when somebody invests in you to that, you don't want to disappoint them, right? And
you did not disappoint her.
Yeah, I hope I didn't. So, she was there. She came and she was like, oh my God, like you are here at the Mecca, right? At the Metropolitan Opera House. And I was able to pay for her to be there. And that to me was important to me to be able to do that.
Oh, it's incredible.
That's gorgeous.
That is incredible. It really is.
Yeah.
So from there, you've had so many, incredible career moments. Is there a highlight for you?
Wow. So first of all, many highlights. But maybe not what you think. Obviously, singing at the Metropolitan Opera is a gigantic highlight. When I was doing my apprenticeship with Houston Grand Opera, Opera Theater of St. Louis engaged me to do an artist in residence there for about 3 weeks. And what that was part of their educational outreach, where they would send young people like myself to retirement homes to community centers to schools. So they sent me to elementary schools. And let me tell you something right here and right now. Performing in front of the Metropolitan Opera is one thing. Performing in front of a bunch of kindergartners.
Tougher audience?
Tougher audience, man. Or even worse, actually worse, the junior high school kids.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal. Brutal. But if you want to see how you're doing and how honest you are, to get their approval is something. So I would say, first of all, those kinds of audiences, young people, junior high school kids, because that's hard because they don't care anything about that, and have to come in and get their attention and to sell them on that and to make them believe it and to have them go into their hearts. To me, that's successful. Another thing that I would say that stands out as something that I will never forget is when I was doing this apprenticeship residency with the Opera Theater of St. Louis, they sent me to prison. And I didn't want to go, and I did not want to go. And I was like, well, why are you sending me, there? I don't want to go there. And I was scared.
Was it a men's prison or a women's prison?
Yes, it was. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to a prison and sing operatic arias? Like, how in the world is that going to work? How is that going to be received? And I thought, first of all, they're going to laugh and nobody's going to want to be there. Because, the Metropolitan Opera, everybody wants to be there.
Right.
It's a very different crowd, right? This is a different crowd. And I just didn't think that I had anything to offer that community. I didn't think that it would resonate at all. And I was also scared. I was scared for myself, and I was scared for how it, might or might not be received. I thought, I'm just going to look stupid up there, and nobody's going to care. And it took me to a much younger place in myself of being, a young girl growing up, in the neighborhood or in the hood, deciding that she wants to be an opera singer, and how that kind of news did not play well, right? And did not lend itself to my popularity or lack thereof. And I thought, I just thought it was going to be a futile exercise. And there was an orientation before about what I could do and what I couldn't do and how close I could get to them and all this stuff. And
was there a stage? Was it sort of in a rec center kind of a location?
It was like in a recreation room. And there were guards there, with the guns and all the stuff. And I was really far from the people. And I just thought, if I'm afraid, that's what's going to read. Yeah. That's what they're going to get. They're going to receive that. And, growing up in a religious background, what I would say is for sure, the most important gift that my mother ever gave me, no question about it. It is the foundation. It is the bedrock on which I live my life. That is the truth. And so I just surrounded myself in light, and I asked for the protection of the universe. And I said, I'm going to just go ahead and do this thing. Because I remember watching I wonder what that guy did, and I wonder what that guy did. And some of those faces were really hardened and looking at me, judging me, and everything that I was feeling. And then I saw some of those faces that were really like granite, so hard, begin to lighten and begin to lift, and light come into their faces and begin to smile and begin to laugh. And then I thought, now you did something. Today you did something. And I thought, my grandmother, whom I never met, would be proud of me. That was something.
My God, it was. Well, obviously, they were just, responding to your particular brand of magic, right? Bringing them in, bringing them out of where they were and having them enjoy the beautiful, incredible music.
Yeah, and leaning it, absolutely, and thank you for saying that, but also leaning into the thing that brought me to this in the first place, which is my heart and soul and intellect connection to this art form. And just really going in, because I believe that the stage is a magnifying glass, and I think, you cannot lie when you're up there. Everybody sees the truth. Either you believe it yourself or you don't. And if you don't, the kindergartners and and the junior high school kids will let you know quick, fast, and in a hurry if they believe that you're authentic or if you're fake. And so I just thought, I'm going to lean into this with all my heart. And if they get it, they get it.
And they got it.
And they got it.
Oh, it's amazing. You talked earlier about sort of being surrounded by, in these communities of other classical vocal artists. And you've sang with some of the most incredible talents in the history of the world. Let's talk about the three tenors.
Oh, all three of them.
I mean, you could what was that experience like?
Love them.
And do you feel like you have particular chemistry with one of them?
They were all so different. I mean, I performed a lot with Plácido, a lot. I mean, he and I did so many Carmens together. We did so many Samson and Delilahs together. We did so many concerts together. So I had, for sure, the biggest experience with him the most. And when I was doing my apprenticeship at Houston Grand Opera, I was singing the role of Emilia in Otello, which is a small part, but he was singing the role of Otello. And I got to meet him, and he heard my voice. And after that, he said, "Oh, what a beautiful voice. I would love to have you, do some concerts with me." And so while I was under contract as a young artist, then I was, just like with the Opera Theater of St. Louis, was engaged out during the contract, right? So Plácido invited me to do some concerts with him. And so the career really got going before I had finished my apprenticeship there. So I had the biggest
and he was
experience
back
with him.
then the Plácido Domingo that we know. Yeah, he was already a huge,
Gigantic. But then I had a lot of beautiful experiences with Pavarotti. So many. We did a recording together. I should show you some pictures. I'll have to find my phone. I'll show you some pictures of us. Well, we did lots of concerts together too. We did a Rigoletto recording together, but we did lots of concerts. And then during President W. Bush's administration, I was appointed cultural ambassador to the United States. So they used to send me out. The Department of State would send me, particularly after 9/11, after we realized that not everybody likes us as Americans, they sent me to places, and lots of other people, Yo-Yo Ma too, went countries with a Muslim concentration to do concerts, to do master classes, to do meet and greets, to do a cultural exchange, right?
What countries did you go to?
Oh my gosh. I went to Russia a few times. I went to Venezuela. I went to Greece. Oh gosh, I'll have to go back to look at all the different places.
You were, I'm sure, just like you have been in every place that you've performed, well received, and you kind of brought everybody in, and it was
it was wonderful. But in Russia, I was there a few times with Pavarotti. Yeah, this was doing one of the summits, like the G12 or something like that. But I was there as an ambassador, and so we worked together then. But that was already then now in sort of the twilight of his career. But also during his heyday, we performed together a lot too. And he was so much fun. He was fun to be with. And I think a lot of singers, particularly when you're working, right? And everybody has their own sort of code of behavior and their own way of being, because as I was saying before about this art form being a pure art form, one of the reasons that they think that, or that they say that opera singers can be really neurotic is because so much can affect the voice. You don't sleep. You are the instrument, right? You can get another clarinet. You can get another flute, right? If you took a plane and it dries you out, or you had something to drink, or you didn't have anything to drink, or the air was dry, or for women it's your cycle and all the different things, the myriad of things that come into play that impact the sound of the voice, and it's everything. It's everything. Talk about my voice teacher, Helen Hodem. My second voice lesson, she said, "You don't sound right." She said, "What were you doing last night?" And I said, "Oh, I was out with some friends and we were out laughing." And she said, "You were out laughing on the night before a voice lesson?"
That is,
And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? But all of those things, because it's you.
yes,
You are the
I've
instrument.
never thought of that.
It
I don't
impacts
think
everything. If you're
don't think-
talking
yeah.
loud, if you're at a party and you're with somebody who's sick, just everything.
Yeah, you can't get sick. And do you have certain, obviously, rituals of warm water with lemon, or what are your?
I do, and everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody does. I go under, and people know, don't call me. If it's the night before, and I start that, for me, I started a couple nights before, particularly now at this stage of the game where I am now. But if I've got a concert on Friday, it really, for me, starts on Monday or Tuesday. The care.
And just means you're going to speak in a softer voice. We're not going to.
But you're not going to whisper because that uses more muscles. But it means that you're going to make sure you get to bed early, even if you don't sleep, but you get to bed. You're going to make sure that you're in a humidified, environment, that you're drinking a lot of water, that you're not eating dairy, that you're not eating things that cause acid reflux. You're not having tomatoes and vinegar and chocolate and all the stuff that causes phlegm, right? Or that causes acid reflux, because acid reflux can kill the vocal folds. And I can tell you that because I've had huge problems with acid reflux my whole career, actually. I tell my students all the time, you're not going to be judged on your best singing. You're going to be judged on your average singing. And you've got to work to get your average singing above everybody else's average. The day that you're going to be in the best voice is going to be the day you're doing the laundry.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you'll say, why couldn't this be my Met debut? The day that you have your Met debut, that's the day you've got an upset stomach. That's the day you've got, a little bit of laryngitis, like all the stuff that can happen because of that's when it's going to happen. And that's what the vocal technique is about. Right. The vocal technique is to ensure that Monday night is as good as Thursday night, is as good as Saturday afternoon. That's why we have to work for sensation and not sound. Because if I sing in this room, it's going to be very different than singing in the space or the stage of the Metropolitan Opera, or singing in a rec room at a community center or something like that. The quality of the sound is going to change from space to space, depending on the acoustics, right? Or how dry it is, or how live it is, or how wet it is, or all of the different things. All of those things impact it. You have to work for the sensation. That's where the technique comes in to place. It's not going to be your listening to yourself. It's going to be your ability to be able to feel that those are in your resonators, right? That you feel that in the mask. Oftentimes, the night of your Carnegie Hall debut is not going to be the night that you're going to be in the best voice.
So make sure that your average is a 10.
That's what you're going to be judged on. You're going to be judged on your average singing and the consistency of that.
Well, that is it for now, this episode. A huge thank you again to Denyce Graves for joining. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and follow us on Instagram at The Interview with Leslie. Please don't forget to tune in next week for part 2 of this episode for more from Denyce about her new life's passion, her work with her foundation, and educating and mentoring the great classical vocal artists of tomorrow. Look out for that to be released next Wednesday. And until then, this is Leslie, and thank you for listening to The Interview.